Welcome back. Now, intermittent fasting is becoming an increasingly popular way to lose weight. According to a survey by the International Food Information Council Foundation, intermittent fasting, or IF as it's also known, was last year's most popular diet. Whether it's eating in a 5-2 or a 16-8 pattern, don't worry, we'll explain that shortly. Losing weight through this method is more about when you eat and less about what you eat. Well, tonight we find out what the fuss is all about with intermittent fasting from 4 women who tried and say it works. We also have a health and fitness coach and nutritionist to interrogate just how safe it is and whether it is something to consider. Let me introduce my guest really quickly. From my far right, Roslyn Mutie, who went from 69 kgs to 52 kgs. She's looking amazing, by the way. To my closest right is Vinita Otieno, a health and wellness coach and general manager at Smart Gyms Kenya. And to my left is Lynn Nzisa. She is actually the founder of the Intermittent Fasting Support Group Africa. And she went from 79 kgs to 58 kgs. Amazing. Next to her is Sharon Kagundo, who lost over 20 kgs. And last but not least is Daisy Rono, who lost 16 kgs and is now 70 kgs. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming in. I think I'll begin with you, Lynn, just to get the reason why you decided to start this journey, of course, to lose weight. And had you tried other methods before you got into IF?
Yes, so my turning point was on 22nd of May last year. That's 2018. I had gone with a group of classmates. I'm a lawyer by training, and we have our alumni for our class. We had one of our classmates who had undergone alcohol addiction, and we are taking him through a rehab. So when we went to visit him, I was on phone, and my friend took a photo. And she later sent me a message, "Congratulations, when is the baby due?" And I was like, "Which baby?" She said, "No, Nzisa, you're pregnant. Your tummy even looks like your baby has turned." I said, "Get serious." She's called Sheila. I'm not pregnant. And when I looked at that photo, I work in Addis Ababa. So I traveled the following Monday to Addis Ababa, and I was pretty much disturbed. So when I arrived, I said I have to do something. So I started researching on what people are doing to lose weight, and I stumbled upon Dr. Jason Fang. He's a doctor who's been credited for most of the information online on intermittent fasting.
Right.
I bought the Obesity Code book, I read it, and I started practicing. And in barely 3 months, I was able to move from 79 kilos to 58 kilos.
You know, and that's the very interesting bit, how quickly you lose weight. And this did not incorporate going to the gym and working out.
No.
Strictly food.
Strictly fasting. Changing what I eat and when I eat.
So for you particularly, what did you do in terms of the times you weren't eating and the times that you did?
So for me, most of my weight loss was in the last 2 months. So in the first month was trial and error because I was still learning, but I was anxious to, you know, to do something to change my body. Obviously, my body composition was wrong. And sometimes I look at my before photos. I actually never used to deliberately take photos of myself. So the only before photos I have are the ones that were taken without my knowledge or, you know, my consent. So initially I started with what people call 1 meal per day, or OMAD. Okay. That's eating once every 24 hours. I lost a few kilos for 2 weeks, and then I stalled. And so I got curious, why are the kilos not dropping anymore? So I was in Addis Ababa that time, staying in an hotel. So there's a weighing scale in the hotel room, so I could weigh myself every morning. Obviously not a good thing I advise now because it makes you anxious, but I was anxious to lose weight. So after 2 weeks, I lost maybe about 5 kilos, and then I stopped losing weight. And it's not little kilos, but the first kilos you lose are actually water weight. Yeah. Because when you're not, and some of the food in your digestive system, because when you're not eating, you shed that off. And then after it stabilizes. So I started researching and got into information about extended fasting. So in the second month, I started trying fasting for different periods. So I started with alternate day fasting. Okay. So I would eat today, 2 meals, and skip meals tomorrow and eat the following day. Yeah. And I started increasing it to 48 hours, after which I would eat 2 meals, then start another fast, 72 hours. And at some point, I did a 7-day fast.
Wow.
water fasting.
You know, it's amazing that you can talk about this so calmly and with a smile. Most people just feel like it's punishment that you're not eating. But Sharon, you actually had a baby before you got on to this.
Yes.
And, you know, that's the time when you should have as many nutrients as possible because you're breastfeeding. What was that experience like for you being on IF?
Okay, for me, I started when my baby started feeding.
Okay.
After 2 weeks, she had already on solid and she was okay. Earlier on, I had noticed about intermittent fasting a month before I started. So I was already on a low-carb diet, banting. And later on, after my baby started feeding, I started fasting. But I am limited. Unlike her, I'm limited. I can only do up to 20 hours. Since doing beyond 20 is risky, not only for the milk. Milk might go
You may
away.
not produce as much as you want.
Yes, and also you might get toxins because IF, you detoxify the body. So there is limitation. Actually, you need a lot of information before you start it. Yes.
Wow. And let me bring you in, Vinita, because a lot of people are asking, okay, sounds good, you're seeing the results, but how safe is it?
Personally, it's not something I would advocate for, but what I've noticed is they all have glowing skin. So at some point, when you're in a complete caloric deficit, your skin should show that you're not eating well. However, different things work for different people. Right. I don't encourage not eating for such a long period of time, especially the busy Nairobi lifestyle we live as individuals. Yeah, it's not something that I think would be safe.
And this is really interesting. I want to bring you in, Roslyn, which you look great. I'm not going to ask your age, and this is so funny because it's probably the first time that you have women publicly give their weight. Because this does not happen, but they're proud of it. Roslyn, take us through your journey and how you began your IF story.
My journey started last year, August 24th. Lynn, we used to school together, and we were in a certain WhatsApp group. So she introduces us to another certain group of fasting, but we noticed that it could not work for us Africans because it was, many of the people were the whites. So I started in August 24th. I lost 2 kgs. Come September, I stalled. I stopped losing weight. So I continued fasting for September, November. I increased the 2 kilos that I had lost. So I noticed my problem was that I was still doing white tea and I was doing the OMAD, that is 1 meal per day. So come December, I told Lynn, she was my personal coach, I'm now ready to start the journey again. So I avoided milk, I avoided fruits, and she could send me the meals that helped her to lose weight. So I started the journey again. So by 22nd of February, I had shed around 17 kgs.
Wow. So
I moved from 69 to 52 kgs, and I was really thin. So she told me, you've now lost weight, but at what point do you want to maintain? I told her I'll be comfortable to move up to 58, between 58 to 60. So the whole of March, I didn't do fasting. I wanted to gain those kilos. I started fasting again around April, but to date, I've not yet recovered those kilos. I'm still at 56, but I want to eat 58 because it's a lifestyle. I've adapted to that lifestyle.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of find out whether this is a long-term commitment or just something to kind of lose weight for a period of time, and then after that, you go into your normal kind of eating habits. For you, Daisy, is it something that you're going on full on for a lifetime choice?
Yeah, basically for me, and I'm still work in progress. I want to reach where these guys are. But for me, it's an interesting story because it's health related. I was diagnosed with diabetes 2 last year, May.
Wow.
And so when I saw my doctor, it was actually very fatal because I was in the HDU for like 3 days. It was a newly diagnosed case. And so when I was discharged from the hospital, I was given a meal plan. I was supposed to eat like 5 days, five times a day. That is the main meals and the snacks in between. This is because it's better if your insulin levels are high than when it's low. So I'd lost weight because of the diabetes. But now when I went to the doctor, I was discharged, I started the meal plan, and what that did for me is I ballooned again. I went to 89 kilos. And so my AC1, so for a doctor to say you're diabetes, they have to give you an AC1 level. That is a 3-month kind of assessment. And mine was 14%. It's supposed to be 6% and below. Mine was 14%, which was really bad. So after the 3 months, after following the doctor's meal plan, I went back and it was still at 9%, which was still not good. And I'd also had added weight. So really it was, I started doing research. I joined the Obesity Code Network. I researched thoroughly. And what I found was something not customizable. It was not in the context of, we could not relate to it. But nevertheless, I did it. That is in December. I started losing weight. But in February, I stalled as well. And that is where I got to Kelitu's group in Facebook. So I did a 5-week fast. And it was really hard because I was injecting insulin on myself. And so I started gradually. I didn't just stop completely. And by June, and that's why I was saying, for mine, weight loss is just an added advantage. But for health, right now, my AC1 level is 5.2%. It should be 6% and below. So yes,
so it has the health benefits
going to be a lifetime.
As well.
Yeah.
And your doctor was aware that you were on IF?
Yes, I had to tell him. And he, of course, he was he really didn't encourage it, but he was like, just make sure your insulin is always beside your bed, just in case of anything.
And what does he say now when he's seen the numbers are kind of in tandem with what you're doing in the IF?
Yes, I don't know whether he'll encourage his patients, but I've walked him through the process, and I told him to watch this. So I hope it's something he can tell his patients as well.
And it's interesting, Vinita, because in all their stories, there's quick weight loss, which is great. Many people saying that's the goal for me, but there's a worry that is that sustainable? And you also run the risk of maybe gaining it back just as quickly. So what do you recommend if someone's losing weight that quickly? Is that something they should be doing?
I don't feel it's something that you should be doing long term. Like they're saying, like Lynn has mentioned, she was heavy, she got a picture done, and it was her turning point, so she chose to do it. And that's you all look amazing. But my question would be, in 1 year's time, are you able to do it? And what's your driving force behind it? As a health and wellness coach, I encourage people to do something that's sustainable and will become part of your lifestyle. Because we're not only living for today, tomorrow, or next week. You want to kind of do something that's easily sustainable. Now, when you say you're going to fast 24 hours, and then eat, I know like there's 18-6, which is you create different windows, 8 hours, you have an 8-hour window to eat, 16 hours to fast, right? That one seems doable. If you're going to do 2 meals, again, but if I compare that to a portion-controlled diet, or not, let me not call it a diet, diet has a negative implication, portion-controlled meal plan, that to me seems more sustainable because you're busy and you eat it. And I know you mentioned you got off the type 2 diabetes and then they put you to eat 5 meals and you actually ballooned up to 89, I think, 89 kg, right? So again, everybody, you should work with what works with your body. Is it sustainable to not eat purely for weight loss reasons? No, I don't agree. Me as a health and wellness coach, it's not something I would advocate for. Is it in line that if I reduce my portions, if I'm over-consuming, because let's face it, you over-consume, you gain weight. You reduce what you're eating, you lose weight. I feel that's the science behind it. Agree or not agree, they are named different things.
And speaking of the science behind it, because I know, Lynn, you've done a lot of research, you have the support group. What are the side effects for anyone who's thinking about doing it? It can't just be a perfect story.
So yeah, I actually don't think there are any side effects as such, but let me answer questions about sustainability. I think I am an example that it works. Like I said, I started in May last year, so that's over 1 year.
Yes.
And I was able to lose my weight within 3 months, and I'm still 50. Actually, I've not measured lately because I was traveling, but I think now I could be around 57 because I'm feeling lighter than when I last weighed at 58. But the point is, I've been able to maintain for close to a year now. So that tells you that it is sustainable. Now, the whole issue about portion control is where people go wrong in weight loss. And if you study about why people gain weight or what is at play in gaining and losing weight, is about hormones. And there are two critical hormones that determine weight gain or weight loss. One of them is insulin, and the second one is cortisol. So insulin, and Dr. Jason Fang has done a study, and because he runs a clinic in Toronto, where he treats obesity, type 2 diabetes, and kidney disease using intermittent fasting. And so he walks through his patients, he takes their insulin levels, he monitors many things, their blood pressure, electrolytes. And he has stated that when your insulin is up, your body automatically turns off fat burning. So the essence of intermittent fasting is to alternate between eating and not eating, to give your body time for insulin to fall so that you can be able to burn stored fat. So when you diet or portion control, it means you're eating throughout in smaller portions. So because you're constantly eating, your insulin is always high, and therefore you're not burning fat. And that's why it's not sustainable. So you go into calorie deficit, you lose some weight because you're in calorie deficit, but your body adapts to your new eating pattern and adjusts. So what the body does is something called homeostasis. With time, your body brings down its energy expenditure, what we call the basal energy expenditure, especially if you're not working out. So you're just at base. So if you're eating 15 calories, your body starts shutting down some non-essential services like warming the body. It's the same way like in a company, when you're in a budget deficit, you start cutting down budget. So your body reduces its energy expenditure. So now you think you're in a deficit, but you're not. So when you plateau, you get frustrated. Over time, you start eating again, but your basal metabolic rate is still low. And that's why you gain it back. Sustainability of intermittent fasting is because you're alternating, saying that today, I'm going to gain my energy from food. And tomorrow, I'm going to not eat, so I will let my body access the energy from my burnt fat. So it's like cycling between alternative energy sources. Once you reach your goal, you start now eating for maintenance. Eating for maintenance means that I'm eating what is enough for me today. So I don't want to lose and I don't want to gain. So from August 15th, I've been eating, most of the days I eat 2 meals per day. Some days I eat 1 meal per day. If you eat 1 meal per day occasionally, it doesn't mess your metabolism. But if you eat it consistently as a pattern, you cannot have enough calories in 1 meal in a day. So that's how you plateau. Occasionally, when I feel I've indulged, I can do a 36 hours fast to reset. And that's why it's sustainable, because I'm able to control what I'm eating. If I put on 1 kilo, I know what to do. Like I never fasted over Christmas and New Year for 4 weeks. And you put the weight back? I only put on 2 kilos. So it came back? Mostly, let me explain to you, I was eating a lot of, I went low wheat, but occasionally I eat wheat. And wheat bloats, carbohydrates lead to water retention. So sometimes when you put up a kilo or 2, you might think you've put on new fat. But most of the times it's retained water, is the waste in your digestive system. And I was able to shed it off in 1 week of a fast. So I know what to do and undo. So for me, it's a lifestyle.
Let me ask this, because for someone who probably would want to consider doing intermittent fasting, and you mentioned, okay, so you'll have a day where you eat and you'll have your energy levels from that. The following day you don't, so you're kind of picking up from stored energy. For someone who, say, wants to work out, they don't want to give up being active. And I mean, beyond even going to the gym, you have a very active lifestyle just generally. Do you really sustain energy levels on a program like that? Is that practical?
So in my program, I tell people, and this worked for me, because I have actually been a member of several gyms for many years. I do workout and I encourage people to work out. But when you're doing the intense 5-week program, I tell people not to work out, because you need to conserve your energy. From the research I have done is that if you have a belly like I had, I don't know if they can put the photo up, you have a big belly, no matter how many sit-ups you do, it's like trying to build a storage tower without a foundation. You're trying to build it on quicksand. So the methodology of fasting is that get off the fat, burn the fat, and then you start building. So if you have a belly like I had, I don't know if they can put the photo up, you have a big belly, no matter how many sit-ups you do, it's like trying to build a storage tower without a foundation. You're trying to build it on quicksand. So the methodology of fasting is that get off the fat, And then when you're at goal or close to goal, start working out to build muscle, to shape your body. It's like digging out the sand soil, getting to the stone and building a foundation. Yeah. So we exercise at maintenance, but during the intense program, I encourage people not to work out. Yeah. And the other reason is because I talked about 2 hormones. There's cortisol. Cortisol hormone raises when you exert yourself, when you're stressed. Exercise raises cortisol hormone, lack of sleep, stress generally. And whenever you're stressed, your body turns off fat burning. So there are 2 things that make you not burn fat. One of it is cortisol. The other one is insulin. Yeah. So when you over-exercise and you have a lot of fats, the cortisol makes you not lose fat. So that's why a lot of people work out and you find you're not losing fat. So what I encourage people is burn the fats and then build the muscle.
Let me bring this to Benita, because you, of course, have a very different philosophy to this and encourage people to be active and in the gym and have a balanced diet. What for you is the ideal for anyone who wants to not just lose but maintain weight? And if the people also want to get toned. Yeah. So beyond just kind of being lean, you want to be strong as well.
Now, if you're working on building strength and weight training and just transforming your body, I believe you need to eat. You don't eat to sustain yourself energy-wise. There's a certain way, like you've mentioned, when you're on an extreme fast and for the first 5 weeks, you don't have the energy. We do draw energy from food. That, I think, is something we both agree on. If you're going to eat, again, 2 meals or 1 meal, you're not able to sustain that and build. For me, health and wellness is it's a long-term plan. You've mentioned correctly that holiday, wheat, all these things retain water. And the minute you put them back, you gained weight. She's also mentioned that she did the initial fast, went down to 52, got off the fast just to bring back the weight. Now, with health and wellness, you're creating a balance that is sustainable. You can exercise while eating, like you've rightly said. We exercise, you encourage people to exercise once they've increased their calories. I don't feel to lose weight, I'd look at it as a fad, something that is, if you're jump starting, a lifestyle. Because let's face it, we all struggle with weight. Weight is a big issue. Both losing weight, gaining weight. It's a story that you hear of years to come, years back. But at the end of the day, you want to do something that is sustainable. It's worked for you, it may not work for somebody else. It's worked, of course, health-wise for you, it was a big deal. But again, I would say, to get into the IF, get medical. Your doctor approves it, and then you do it. It's not something that you can just wake up and do. Whereas with the gym, despite if you're obese, and you've said, for you, your theory is that if you're overweight, first lose the weight and then get to the gym. My theory is start. You exercise, get into the gym, get into walking, get into doing something, get into moving. Okay. If it is not a must, I'm not saying everybody, you have to gym to lose weight, but start moving. I wouldn't say, first of all, just lose it in your house. Then after you've lost the weight, now let's start walking. No, I want you to start your journey. We all start from crawling to walking to running. We can agree on that.
And let me get this from the other ladies in terms, because a big part of this affair is not eating. How do you manage cravings? Because it's a big part. People are wondering, okay, I would love to, but to build that discipline, to avoid foods that, listen, you know, food is bae, that is a very hard sell to tell someone to get away from food for that long. But in your case, what did you do, Sharon, to manage cravings?
Okay, for me, IF was quite easy. Yeah. As I said, I had already gotten out of sugar, and foods that turn easily into sugar, like refined carbohydrates. So when you get out of carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, it's very easy to do IF. And actually, let me correct you, we don't get our energy just from eating, because our stored fat is energy enough, because it is turned into glucose. Of course, after the liver has depleted the glucose, it gets to the fat.
Through missing one day.
Yes. So we are not saying that exercise is wrong. What we are saying is that you don't necessarily have to fast for exercise for weight loss.
Yes, I agree.
Because many people have exercised and nothing comes out of the exercise. We are not saying that you cannot lose weight out of the exercise. And just like exercise, you have to exercise throughout your life. so does if. You have to do it. But of course, you have to get the information, the correct information, so that you can know how to do it. But for cravings, it's very easy to do IF when you have the correct way of eating, because you're eating too much sugar anyway. So when you get out of sugar, and not only sugar, you know, sugar is in many things, it's very easy. It was easy for me.
So beyond the weight loss and the energy, what other benefits have you seen, Roslyn, you know, maybe in terms of thinking clearer or just other things that come as a result?
As for my case, I had some disc dislocation. I used to go for my physiotherapy at Aga Khan. So through the fasting, I lost the weight, and that has disappeared. And it has built myself to where I am, because even my self-esteem has risen. I don't have to worry about weight and going back to the hospital. So it has really helped. Because if I look back to in our family, we have a case of diabetes. So I didn't want to go into that other end.
Right.
Yeah. So it has really helped. And I don't do cravings because I stopped sugar for like 2 years back. So it's not a problem to me.
So you guys seem to have already been on some form of denying yourself something like sugar or fats or carbs. So by the time you got into a program like this, it wasn't as difficult.
Not really.
But for you, Daisy, okay, you had the whole scare of diabetes that was factored in. But did you have issues with cravings, for instance, when you just got on? Because now your body is asking for insulin, it's not necessarily getting it. You know, how did you manage that?
Yeah, so for me, it was not really a choice that I had to make. It was like a matter of life and death, because so I had to stop sugar immediately, and probably that helped me too. And also what I realized about IF, to be fat adapted is really key, because what brings the hunger and the cravings is normally if your body doesn't have enough fats. So what that had helped me to actually do away with the cravings was I prepared for like a week or 2 weeks. We have what is called freestyle. You don't follow the timetable, but you just try to see what works for you. You listen to your body. So what I did is I took enough healthy fats, that is avocado, eggs, bacons, and coconut oil and all that. It helps you to be fat adapted. So when you start your fasting, it's easy. It's easy. And I just wanted to give a practical example on the insulin levels and all that. When I started doing off the insulin injections, it was interesting because I used to inject myself like 3 times a day. And I eat fast, wait for an hour, test myself, then inject myself. So it didn't make sense, because just before I feed, my insulin levels were okay. My glucose level were okay, And then after eating 1 hour, it has gone up. It has spiked. So I kept asking myself, then why should I eat even if I'm not hungry? And because this is now what makes me inject insulin on myself, so that now the glucose goes back down again. So intermittent fasting made a lot of sense, because I don't have to eat every other time and spike my insulin, which eventually causes insulin resistance and weight gain and all that.
Very interesting, because a lot of people, who are critics of this say it's an extreme diet, and it goes against this philosophy of balance when it comes to living a healthy lifestyle. But Lynn, for you, someone who wants to kind of get into it, and we should have actually tackled this a bit early on in the conversation, but what kinds of IF methods are there? We've heard numbers of 16-8, 5-2. What are they, and just how do they work?
And in fact, that's what I wanted to explain based on our concern, is that when I say don't exercise, is that I have this intensive 5-week program, and that is the one I tell people not to exercise. But that's not the only way to lose weight. So I call my program the sprint of losing weight. When you're in athletics, there is the 100-meter sprint, and also you can do a marathon, and also there's something we used to call a walk. I actually used to do walk when I was in high school. So you walk, and it takes long. So there are many ways of getting there. So there are people who do 16-8. So that means that you don't eat for 16 hours, and then you eat for 8 hours. Actually, the minimum time period to qualify for intermittent fasting is 16 hours. And the reason is because from studies that have been done, it takes up to 14 hours from when you ate your last meal for insulin to fall. So if you eat before 16 hours are up, your insulin is still high. So after 14 hours is when you enter what we call fat burning mode. So 14 hours. So if you fast for 16 hours, you're only burning fat for 2 hours. So, and you keep restarting the process. So you will lose weight, but it will take a long time. So other people do 18-6. It means that you stay 18 hours without food and then eat 2 meals within 6 hours. And then others do what is called OMAD, and that's where the problem is, because if you're doing 20 hours and above, you can't eat 2 meals within 4 hours. So you eat once per day, and it's the one I said affects metabolism. Actually, I tell people, if you don't want to fast long, doing 16-8 and 18-6 is safer than doing OMAD, because you lose weight slowly but preserve your metabolism, because you're still getting your 2 meals. But you're burning fat for 2 hours. So, but it's going to take you a long time. So alternate day fasting comes when you want to now start fast tracking the weight loss. Because if you say you're eating alternate days, so it means if I eat today dinner, I go up to tomorrow dinner, that's 24 hours. So instead of eating, I go to bed, which is easy thing to do. Then I wake up in the morning and eat breakfast. I'll have done 36 hours. Using the concept of 14 hours, I've burned fat for 22 hours. If I'm doing 16-8, I need 11 days to be in fat burning mode for 22 hours.
I'm curious.
So it's easier to do one long fast per week than to keep doing long, short fasts, because, you know, it's like you keep on restarting a process.
And can this work for someone who's morbidly obese? You know, who's really, really, really overweight? You know, there's a story of the gentleman who was 176 kilograms and had the stomach surgery at KNH. So can it work for someone like that, for instance?
Actually, if you look at YouTube, there was somebody who fasted for a whole year under medical supervision, taking only multivitamins and minerals for a whole year, and he lost like a lot of weight. It's actually, he won the Guinness world record for the highest amount of weight loss. And for me, why I know it's safe, and I know you mentioned you need to talk to your doctor. Now, intermittent fasting is not your conventional way of eating or your conventional way of losing weight. So, because people are taught in a conventional way, and you take an oath, your doctor might not encourage it. But we have doctors who have gone out of the way and said that conventional medicine is the reason we got to where we are. We were taught to eat breakfast is the most important meal, eat 6 more meals, and they have disputed that, including these whole issues about vegetable fats being healthy. All this science, you know, science keeps changing.
It does, keeps evolving.
Yeah, so, but there are doctors who have followed through with people and documented it and shown that it is safe. We've done it and it is safe. If I give you an example, for example, a few years back, I think last year, there were those 10 kids who were stuck in a tunnel for 10 days. And they had access to water. They were found alive. People have gone through famine situation. If you study, and people have studied famine, when you don't have food and you have water, you can survive for a long time.
Very true.
Your body, actually your stored fat is your body way of keeping a store for the time you have no food. So fasting is like way of inducing a temporary starvation, but in a controlled manner, to go back, because when you study what happens when somebody is starving, you first lose the fat, and then when it is finished, you start wasting muscle. So you start getting emaciated, and eventually you die. And Dr. Jason Fan, for example, has said that fasting up to 7 days is safe to do without medical supervision. If you're going beyond
up to 7 days,
if you're going beyond 7 days, now you need to start monitoring your blood sugar, your blood pressure, and your electrolytes.
Let me give the last words to Vinita, just in terms of everything that you've heard, and of course what you advocate for. What should people be considering if they are thinking about getting into IF?
Okay, first again, when I say talk to your doctor, there are people who take medications. Medication is usually placed around, you eat. There are certain medicines you take and you're told you have to eat first before you take it.
Actually, that my program has a disclaimer that you cannot do it if you have medical issues. But also, because I've done a lot of research and I've written a book, I do guide people when they have medical issues, some medical issues, but they do not follow the 5-week program. That is strictly for somebody who is healthy, no medical issues, not pregnant,
so you've cleared
not
that
breastfeeding.
But somebody who's looking to start the IF process, you clear one with your doctor. Secondly, do it gradually. I don't believe it should be extreme. You wake up today morning and you're going to say, I'm going to be able to do the IF, and then 3 days later, 4 days later, you've passed out and somebody has to save you, and you say, no, I was told to not eat for 2 days or not eat for 1 day. Test your body slowly. It may work for you, it may not work. Again, I strongly do not believe it's sustainable in the sense that if it's going to become my lifestyle, for example, if I've exercised and eaten in a certain way, of course we're African, this is all most of our main events are centered around food.
Right.
But is it something that I would do from now until I'm 80?
Yes.
This is a point we can agree, we may disagree on. These are all personal preferences. I believe find what you can, manage what will work for your body, something that's manageable. The basis of any weight loss program, weight gain program, is something that's sustainable, that works in line with you.
So my mom
At
is
the end of the
75
day,
years, she's type 2 diabetic, and she's doing 16/8.
That's amazing.
And the other thing I can tell you as we finish is that in my Facebook group, and you can follow the testimonials there, we have over 5,000 women who have lost weight from September last year.
I look forward to learning.
Through intermittent fasting. So it's not about the 4 of us. We are representative of thousands of people. And you can't argue with statistics. You can't argue with photos.
Science.
You can't argue with evidence.
Same with
We've
weight
done it for
training.
a year. We are here. We are not dead. We are growing.
So clearly,
and we'll be here 10 years.
The jury is still out on this. And very quickly, as we wrap up, thank you so much, ladies, for coming in. Benita as well for sharing. We have Arasa saying, is IF a women's affair? No men on your panel. I do IF, water fasting, dry fasting. I've done it for almost a year now, and I also have followers in this journey. I do this for healing purposes and also for weight loss. So there are also men on this journey as well. Thank you so much. We have to leave it there. And if it's something that you are considering, do your research and see if it works for you. If not, find something that does. Have a wonderful night. I'll see you again tomorrow evening on Sunday Live. Good night.